this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Hey guys, it's Erin Andrews. Breasts get so much attention, but they're still so ignored when it matters most. Everything these days is fighting for your attention. We've got work, family, social media, making it tough to figure out what to prioritize. I got something that should always be at the very top of the list: your breast health. If you're 40 and over, you should be getting screened once a year. And if you're under 40, it's never too soon to visit yourattentionplease.com to learn about breast cancer risk. Trust me, your future self will thank you.
Wasabi is purpose-built to free your business from skyrocketing storage costs and fees. Wasabi is the go-to provider for professional and collegiate sports teams around the world. Check out Wasabi's AI-enabled intelligent media storage, Wasabi Air, to the industry's only cloud storage service with triple protection against cyber criminals. Wasabi, driving innovation in data storage for up to 80% less than market competition. Try for free at wasabi.com. Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage, proud partner of iHeart Podcast Network.
You're about to listen to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, which originally aired on YouTube. If you'd like to catch the show live this offseason, you can head to the Late Round Fantasy Football YouTube channel, youtube.com/@LateRoundFF. We'll be live each Wednesday at noon Eastern. Without further ado, here's this week's episode.
Welcome in. David Kitchen alongside JJ Zacharyson. JJ, as you know, is the CEO of the company. Some that say that I'm the COO of the company. We're just going to guide you through some running back stuff this episode, JJ.
I'm already I'm scared for what's to come because someone in chat right now says, lucky for me, year 1 and year 2 running backs is my kink. So that's where the direction. Not only that, it looks like you, at least in the intro, it's gotten a little bit lighter, but it looks like
I raised the
you look like you're about to be in like a, you know, that like thunderstorm setting where like, oh look, it's got a little bit brighter there.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
I can I've got
when a storm is
lights
brewing and like the house gets darker, but it's mid-afternoon. That's kind of what the vibe is. And right now, it feels like that going on in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's it's definitely, it's like that Seattle weather right now where it's just misty rain, but it's dark.
I hope that's not coming for me. Tomorrow, I'm trying to have a good birthday tomorrow with sun, you know?
JJ, is it your birthday tomorrow?
It's my birthday tomorrow, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, 40. The big 40.
Yeah, no, not quite, buddy. Not quite. You know, when this goes out, it will be going out on the podcast feed on the birthday. Yes, tomorrow, February 19th is my birthday. Yeah.
You've got 1 year, buddy.
No,
you got 1 year.
I got 2.
I thought you would be 39.
I'm going to be 38.
Oh, gosh. Why am I trying to age you?
Yeah, let me be. Okay,
You're still upper 30s.
37 was a very uneventful birth year in terms of just like feeling older. 38's the exact same way. It's like you're not quite 39, then you start to feel a little more like, oh my gosh, it's coming. And then obviously, 40 hits.
Yeah, we talked to someone who had just turned 40, and it was like, this is the same way that I felt. Just like, that was the only time I felt like old.
I'll tell you what, though, I don't feel like, to be fair, you're the way that you view age as you get older just changes and shifts all the time, right? Sure. Like you ask anyone who's 4 years old and you say, I'm 38, and they say you're really, really old, right? Like talk to any kids. But I genuinely feel probably better right now at 38 than I did at 28.
Yeah.
It's probably the lack of gluten.
Probably is.
Right? Not as many beers in my system these days.
Or the Greek yogurt.
I am, but yes, I have to throw that out there, especially for anyone who listens to Living the Stream. I've been dairy free for 5 years, and I decided that I was going to venture into dairy a little bit, and I've been doing, because Greek yogurt macros are just insane, and so I've been eating Greek yogurt. It's made me feel great. I've loved it so far. It hasn't ruined my stomach. I healed the gut. Feel great. I'm feeling optimal right now going into year 38, man.
It's you're getting ready for your combine. You're 40.
Well, my yeah, I see what you did there. My combine is how many nights can I write these prospect profiles in a row without, just getting overwhelmed by what's going on.
Speaking of prospect profiles, we do have the prospect guide out for pre-order. So if you want to save yourself a few dollars and you want to just go ahead and sign up for the prospect guide, head to lateround.com. And then as soon as that puppy is launched, you get an email.
Yeah, you will. And in early April, I'm taking a week off. I'm going on a spring break vacay with the fam.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so you will get an email, and then every update that is out, you will get an email with the link to the guide. And this year it's bigger, better than ever. We've got tight end prospect profiles that we haven't had before. And JJ, this we'll talk about in a second, but this class is definitely an interesting one when it just comes to, especially as it compares to last year. And then I guess the year before that as well. It's just like, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have. It's a decent wide receiver class. Me looking into it, like at a high, like I've been really dug into running backs this week for the show, and then the profiles that I'm writing and stuff. Wide receiver, I mean, I think Jordan Tyson's a stud. I think he's potentially like insanely good. I mean, there's going to be a lot of cool data on that, whether next week or in the prospect guide. But there's other, like Carnell Tate's really, really good. Lemon's really, really good. So we have like players at the top at wide receiver. I haven't dug into the depth enough to say like how good or bad the class is as a whole. It seems okay. Running back class, sorry, I should say the wide receiver class seems good.
Yeah.
Running back class, it's better than 2024. We'll say that 2024 was a rough one, where we just didn't get anyone really of substance from that class. But Bucky Irving was essentially the best one. I mean, we didn't get much more aside from that. Jonathan Brooks came out and wasn't able to do anything yet. Yeah. But I don't mind this running back class, I think, as much as some others do. I think that there's some really interesting players and profiles. I talked about that on the show earlier this week.
Yeah.
And I think that the Zap model, there's probably like 3 guys who I could see being day 2 picks, hypothetically, with Jeremiah Love then being a, top 10, top 15 pick.
Yeah, 21 technically, 20 running backs invited, and then some omissions. Like, I'm just like, why are you going to omit a guy that played for the national championship team? Just invite him.
Yeah, I don't know enough about college football to know who should have gone that didn't go, but it is a small, I mean, I'm grateful for it because it's fewer profiles to write, but it is a smaller class in terms. I think last year we had, I don't remember if it was 27 or over 30 because it was a good class too, but we had more running backs at the combine last year. And then it's funny because this is the first year we're doing the tight end profiles, and I think we mentioned this on the show last week, but we have the most tight ends of the combine. I think Brandon ran it, and it's like since 2004 or something like that. So that'll be fun.
Surprise, surprise. Tyler said, some might say it's the best rookie guide on the market.
Thanks, buddy.
And he said, I can't wait for the year 2 scores and breakdowns. Insanely useful for early drafting and North Star all draft and off season.
We'll be talking some year 2 stuff here in a second.
Yes, we will. All right. With that being said, JJ, let's get into today's news.
Today's fantasy news.
All right, not a ton of stuff to talk about. This is like the slow season where you just have stuff trickling in. You got lots of opinions out there, lots of, under like what teams might be saying. You don't know if they're saying it, if their agents are saying it. But we do need to, how people send like the save the date info out there. We need to save the date because we have some important dates coming up. 27th and 28th of February. You know what that is, JJ?
Probably combine related.
That's combine related. Yes. If you look, Brandon Gadula, our senior analyst, found this for us. So this is the combine schedule. And you can see tight ends start first as far as fantasy positions go on Friday. And they do the measurements and then the on-field workout. It's Saturday they do bench press, and then it's a day later for the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. So by March 1st, JJ, we will know hand sizes.
I mean, for the guys that matter, by the end of February, we'll know. Saturday is the day. I mean, the bench press stuff, the day out, like the NFL knows what it's doing, shockingly.
Yeah.
Where I remember running backs and like watching TV during the work week, watching running backs and wide receivers, run the 40 and being able to like live tweet it and stuff. But now it's happening on Saturdays where, it's more of a loose family time, etc. situation. Now I will be glued to the TV because, it's my job, but
why not? Yeah.
And I also want to be like getting these numbers in so I can work on the guide and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the NFL knows that people care most about running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks. And that's why they put it on Saturday, because then they know that people will sit down, get a drink, hang out all day, and just watch these dudes run in shorts.
Shorts, and then it just depends on the position, like questionable tops,
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes
no tops.
Sometimes they're topless.
Yeah.
Freedom. March 9th.
It's free agency.
Like the unofficial date. March 11th is the official date for free agency. So, we've got a lot of stuff that's going to be happening. You've got the combine, then free agency, then shortly after that, we got the release of the prospect guide.
It's going to be a fun couple weeks for me from a content perspective.
It's madness in March.
It is madness in March. Yeah. But after that prospect guide's out, then it becomes, just so you guys can see sort of the behind the scenes stuff, it becomes a lot of long form conversations for me on shows, whether it's my show, other people's shows, trying to promote the guide a little bit, get it out there. The crazy thing is that post launch of the prospect guide until the NFL draft is one of the deadest times of year from a work perspective for me, and for you indirectly, but for me, it's there's little to do compared to other times of year. So I like to take that time to be able to relax a little bit, recharge a little bit, because once the draft is over, there's a little bit of a break in May, but we're right in the draft guide. That's a month and a half of draft guide work right after that. So I am very excited about the combine and free agency and doing all of that content, but I know that once March 16-ish hits, I'll be ready to, hang out for a second and play some Rocket League.
There you go. So that will be an interesting time as far as free agency goes. And let's just start with the big news this week is that Tyreek Hill, he's going to be a free agent, JJ.
Do you have this highlighted in red and white for
Maybe.
the Chiefs?
Maybe.
I mean, look, I think that obviously Tyreek Hill has had an amazing career. I think at this point, he's well past the age apex. He, obviously has had some. I don't want to just like put him in this bucket per se, because there's nothing like going on right now, I don't think. But he's had some off the field stuff, and he had a devastating injury last year.
Yeah.
And his game is focused on his speed, right? And so you have to question what that really looks like. He also famously, I remember a few years ago, said that I think it was 2025 was going to be his last year. Do you remember that? Where he'd said that he was going to retire at this point, and it was a big deal in dynasty circles and whatnot. And so I'm at the point where I just don't, I'm not, if I'm a team, I'm not jumping for joy to sign Tyreek Hill and to get Tyreek Hill. We'll see what happens. He could prove me wrong, but I think logically it's probably over for Tyreek Hill. And what a career he had. I mean, he was one of the most electric players we've ever watched.
Yeah. Let's not bury him just yet. I mean, let's see.
Yeah. I'm saying there's a non-zero chance that he is just done. That's part of the range of outcomes here. But
someone mentioned the number of.
I'd be pretty surprised if number one, he has a top 10 round ADP, but number two, if he's someone that is going to be super fantasy reliable and relevant in 2026.
Someone mentioned the number of kids that he has, and that like he just can't retire.
Yeah, he's gotta keep working for him.
Gotta keep working. I put him in Titans blue though, as well as Mike Evans, who's going to explore free agency as well.
And
because
seeing Mike Evans in a non-Tampa Bay uniform.
But this is what happens to Titans receivers. You look at like Randy
Julio.
Moss, Julio Jones,
Andre Johnson,
DeAndre Hopkins. It's just like even the running backs like Adrian Peterson, I think they were his last name. So
Peterson's going to like a lot. He bounced around a little bit towards the end of his career. Did he play for Tennessee?
Yes.
I don't even remember. Yeah, I mean, look, Evans, I didn't think really looked that bad last year. I'm pulling up his data right now. And in 2025, he did see a dip in yards per route run. It was 1.62, which was actually the lowest of his career. But if you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense as a whole, there were a lot of issues with that, where some of those yards per route run rates really severely dipped, down the stretch last year. And there were instances where, that was happening and coinciding with Mike Evans being healthier. But look, they have a lot of good wide receiver talent in Tampa Bay. I think that they can easily get away with Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, and Chris Godwin as a trio, and Tez Johnson, who had a pretty surprising rookie season as like a viable depth piece. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I thought Mike Evans looked okay last year. Maybe not, he wasn't peak Mike Evans. The data definitely shows that there's a drop off that's happening. But look, I mean, it was year 12 for him. So like this should be expected. It's just going to be really hard to see him playing for somebody else if that ends up, happening in the end.
Okay. I'm going to read you a post that I found on Instagram.
Okay. This will be good.
Every chapter in life has taught me something. This one taught me leadership, resilience, and mostly gratitude. The love I have for this game is unexplainable. And right now, this offseason, for the first time ever, the cheetah is all the way turned up and locked in, period.
So he's
focused, period. The cheetah don't slow down, period. Ever, period. So to everyone wondering what's next, ... just wait on it. The cheetah will be back, period. Born again.
All right, I'm buying. I'm in.
Yeah, top 10 ADP.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill, late round dart throw. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. I mean, look, if he has a 12th round ADP, I don't care. Like, you can draft him. I'll probably draft him. Whatever. Maybe not in best ball because you got to get some production, and there's the risk of him like not doing much at all. But yeah, I mean that's motivating that he's going to play. Sounds like he's about to go.
And turned up and locked in for the first time ever.
Yeah.
He was just playing around all those years before.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a report that Kenneth Walker, they're going to let him walk.
A little surprising because of the Charbonnet injury at the end of last year. I thought because of I thought this was a very real possibility if Charbonnet were healthy, because Charbonnet's fine. He can carry a big workload. He's not a bad back. Is he a game breaking back? No, probably not. Can he work in tandem very well? Yes. If they let Kenneth Walker walk,
which I should clarify, they're not going. The reports are that they're not going to franchise tag him.
I still think that he might get a contract with them.
Right.
We often see that kind of thing happen, and it's a competitive free agent pool, right? And so what that means is that he would be the best free agent running back, but like the teams are not necessarily going to line up as much because they might feel like they have a backup plan. With that being said, I don't think the running back class is unbelievably deep. And so one guy, this is the player we're going to see tied to Seattle throughout the draft process is Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame, because he is if you squint, not analytically as much, but if you squint, you can see Kenneth Walker in his game. He's got a lot of burst, just great speed, big playability. The ZAP model is teammate scores basically doing a lot of the work for Price in the ZAP model because Jeremiah Love played ahead of him throughout his collegiate career. But like we've never really, and Kenneth Walker had volume concerns as a receiver entering the league. It wasn't the fact that he couldn't do it. We've talked about this plenty of times. it's the idea that he wouldn't necessarily be deployed super, super heavily as a receiver. Jadarian Price is kind of in the same bucket. I mean, he's definitely in the bucket of we just have to forecast a lot because he had a sub 3% best season reception share. His receiving yards per team pass attempt number is really weak. Like he's not, and even film grinders will say that they question his like true 3-down ability, but early down stuff. And if they keep this system in Seattle year over year to a degree, the early down stuff and the big play, the home run ability is definitely there for Price. People love Price. I'm probably just going to land more in the middle and just kind of let draft capital and landing spot take the wheel here because his analytical profile is so unique. But we're going to see that name. If not, I'm sure people have already seen it tied to Seattle because he does work really well in tandem with a guy like Charbonnet.
Yeah. And speaking of franchise tags, yesterday was the first day through March 3rd that teams can franchise tag their players. So these would be the fantasy relevant players. Pickens, obviously, with Dallas. Kyle Pitts with Atlanta could be franchise tagged. We talked about Kenneth Walker. And then Indianapolis has an interesting, because they've got Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce.
Yeah, I've seen some reports that they're going to try to keep Pierce and maybe do something else with the other wide receivers there. We'll see.
Yeah. And then, T's and P's for Breece Hall, who expect to be.
Oh, my gosh. So gross. Just one of the best running back talents we've seen, in the last 10 years. And he's just
franchise tagged.
Dying in New York. Yeah.
By the worst franchise. Yes. One of the worst franchises. Not the worst. I don't want to offend like Rich, our buddy Rich Ryan.
Who would you put below the Jets at this point?
The Browns are like, they're.
The Browns are probably down there. Like, it's probably that, like you could maybe say the Raiders, but there's at least like
the Raiders have hope.
Yeah, right. There's some like fun vibes around that with Cleveland. And Cleveland has some pieces, but the Jets are the reason why I fear that I think that Aaron Glenn is just not good at being a head coach. And so, prove me wrong, buddy.
Old Aaron Glenn. All right. As far as the coaching tree, we have it all filled out right now. And I think I counted 20 new offensive coordinators.
Some of them I don't even know much about, like Angelico or whatever. I'll eventually get his name right. Or
Janaco.
Like there's a lot of guys that I need to study up still. I'm frankly and transparently, I'm just not going to be able to get to a lot of the stuff until the prospect guide's done.
And some of it, like Janaco, he was the quarterback coach for the Seahawks. So he moved over with Kubiak. Kubiak is still the main offensive mind there. Brian Fleury was the tight ends coach for the 49ers. So he moved over to the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. But that's just a lot of changes, man, in the NFL.
Yeah, Andrew Janaco, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Sure.
But he played for Pitt.
Who hasn't played for Pitt?
He was quarterback for Pitt. I just can't remember. Like that was when I was in school, literally. Yeah. I just can't remember the pronunciation for a lot of these.
So guys. You saw him walking around campus?
Wouldn't say I would be able to spot him.
Jaquan said, as a Cardinals fan, the only other fan bases I feel worse for are the Jets and the Browns. And then Spider said, thanks, Jaquan. As a Browns fan, we feel pretty bad about ourselves too.
Yeah, the Cardinals are another good call out though. The Cardinals are pretty they have fun players like with McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson had the breakout. So there's from a fantasy perspective, there's some juice and some fun to it, and obviously Kyler.
And I still think Kyler.
I still think Kyler's underrated, but we'll save that for another day.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll save that for another day.
Yeah, that's a little spicy take, and we have to get on to more of the running backs, JJ.
Today's data.
All right.
Yeah. This is just an extension from the show that you guys hopefully listened to that dropped on Tuesday. Of the running backs who produce like studs in college. Now, I've gotten questions about this. Actually, I got one on Patreon this week for the mailbag that I'm not going to get to on the mailbag, but I did talk about it on Patreon with the person who asked it. they were asking about, last year I changed the model up a lot at running back to only feature receiving metrics. And they were like, how do you think it went? And blah, 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 blah. I think it was fine and good. I still am very, very, hopefully I was clear on the show, and I still strongly believe that things like draft capital are capturing rushing production pretty well already. And if draft capital is in the model, my whole philosophy with this modeling stuff is that I'm trying to find when we should deviate from draft capital. And one way of doing that is to think about what are the things that draft capital and teams aren't necessarily valuing as much from a fantasy perspective. And they might not be valuing receiving enough in general, but receiving matters in fantasy because of PPR formats and such, right? So it's also a way to just differentiate one running back from another. Now, with that being said, I did add more of a safeguard metric this year in adjusted yards per team pass attempt. Adjusted yards per team play. This just takes total yards, divides it by plays. If you guys listen to that episode, you heard all of that. There's some predictiveness to it because this is adjusting for age. So the age in which these players hit this mark, it's like a multiplier. And then there's another multiplier that looks at program strength, right? And that's based on strength of schedule from College Football Reference. And so, if a guy has a 2.1 total yards per team play rate, but he did it at 19 years old, and then he played at Alabama, who would likely have a strong strength of schedule, that 2.1 might look more like 2.4 in this metric, right? So what I have here is the top season for each running back that's going to the combine this year. Emmett Johnson is the one who ranks top at 2.54 in total yards per team play, which is why the model likes him and why I talked about him having a pretty complete production profile overall, because again, this is looking at receiving stuff. Now yards per team play is obviously total yards. So you're looking at rushing and receiving, but receiving can still play a decent role within this metric. So Jeremiah Love, number 2, Des Reed, Pitt, small Pitt guy. He's more of a scat back, like a change of pace, like gadget.
Why is he not highlighted?
I'm not highlighting him because the other guys who are highlighted are guys who have interesting projected draft capital.
Gotcha.
Des Reed, every once in a while you're going to get players who look good from a production standpoint, but won't have the draft capital associated because of other reasons. With Des Reed, it's the fact that he's a pretty small back. He's like a gadget, Demetric Felton type player. And so, you can't, I don't want to say that he's like the third best with it because it's skewed with his size. I remember Donnell Pumphrey out of San Diego State. This is just off the top of my head, who was a really small running back, but had like a 2,000 yard season, right? But what the model does is it recognizes, oh, you're small, oh, your draft capital isn't good. Okay, you're probably not going to be that strong of a running back. But if you look, the reason I highlighted this is because most of the guys who are good within this metric are also projected to have the better draft capital within this class in general. The guys who are kind of interesting on the other side of the list are Seth McGowan and Adam Randall. I don't think either of those guys are going to be close to day 2 picks. I actually wrote both of them up already in the prospect guide. And so I'm only highlighting them because of the other guys. They're kind of getting some love from people, whether within the fantasy space or within the prospecting space in general. I did Damon Claiborne. He's kind of in the middle here. He's kind of like a quick, fast, high acceleration receiving back that is maybe a little undersized. I'm very interested to see where he lands at the combine from a size perspective. But look, Jonah Coleman, who looks good analytically, Nick Singleton, who the prospect model really likes Nick Singleton. I mean, Katron Allen, who's his teammate in college, was more of that thunder to Nick Singleton being the lightning. And yes, there is a little bit of a bias, in my opinion, with the model and with my own evaluation of kind of going after the lightning in those kinds of situations because they're more dynamic. You get big plays, and that's what matters in fantasy football oftentimes. But Nick Singleton broke his foot at the Senior Bowl. He was a Penn State guy. If you guys watched any Penn State football, you saw Nick Singleton with like highlight plays over the last 4 years. But Singleton broke his foot at the Senior Bowl. And so I'm curious to see what his draft capital is now going to look like because of that. But on paper, like if he were to run the 40, and he had some projected 40 times for Nick Singleton were like absurd. I'm talking like low 4.4s, even breaking 4.4 on some places. And he's like not small And so that combination would have given him a crazy speed score. And he also has a really good receiving profile because he was the lightning to that backfield. So he was getting more of those looks through the air. Kaytron Allen is more like, I don't know, Damian Harris, if you will, or something like that. More of that like stable early down kind of back. And so Singleton's a really, really interesting prospect to me. I think there might be some value to be had as long as that foot's okay. But like I said, overall, I think this class is not that bad. And if you look at their adjusted yards per team play numbers, which again, you don't have that much context for what these numbers mean.
Right.
But overall, it's not, these numbers aren't that bad for the entirety of the class.
Jim Miller is an interesting one because he's not a small guy. Dude is beefy, the running back from Alabama, and he was hurt a lot of his senior year.
Yeah.
So
I haven't written his profile yet, so I don't want to, comment on where I stand with him, but I would imagine, if he's as low as he is, Jadarian Price, I didn't highlight here because I've talked about him enough.
Yeah.
Split a backfield. Like, you're not going to see great production from him. But one of the very interesting things, I will say this with Jadarian Price, one of the really interesting things with running backs who have, good teammates is that if they do get day 2 capital and they had good teammates, whether going in day 2 or day 1. Now, if they go on round 1, then they're going to get an even bigger boost, which I don't even know if we have an example of that where we had a day 2 back with a day 1 teammate that same year. Now, what we did have was Derrick Henry in, however many years ago, having teammates going in the draft like before and after him, because Alabama was just churning out all of these running backs around that time, right? Where you were just seeing, Mark Ingram and seeing like really good running backs coming out over, year in and year out. And so Henry actually in teammate score got a boost in the model. And that was after kind of messing with teammate score a little bit more, this offseason. So Henry got a little bit of a boost, but there aren't many players. What I'm getting at is there aren't many day 2 running backs who have unbelievable teammate scores in general, but the ones who do and had sort of like compressed production profiles as a result of that, they're not like horrific players, and it's not a bad group for Jadarian Price to be part of. The difference is that like Derrick Henry didn't do much through the air, but he got a lot done on the ground, so his total yards per team play was great, right? And Deontay Foreman's another one in this, who had a really low. He didn't have. I don't think his teammate score was out of control, but he was one of those guys who had a really low reception share, but he was prolific on the ground, so he was able to do a lot in the total yards per team play, which is why I think that metric being back in the model is helpful for the balance of those kinds of archetypes.
This month, iHeartRadio is celebrating the stars of the 2026 Winter Games. Michigan natives Madison Chuck and Evan Bates are the undisputed leaders of American ice dance. As reigning world champions, they arrive in Milano Cortina with a reputation for storytelling and seamless chemistry that captivates judges and fans alike. After years of climbing the ranks, the duo is poised to cap their illustrious careers with the ultimate prize. They take the ice with one goal, bringing Olympic gold home. For more Winter Games gold, search Olympics on the iHeartRadio app.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Yeah, I was looking up if I could see a day 1 versus day 2 pick.
The most recent example of what Jadarian Price kind of is Roschon Johnson, right? With Bijan, with them being in the same class. But Roschon Johnson wasn't looked at this. Like, he's a day 3 pick. This isn't the same thing. I like Price has traits that Roschon Johnson did not have. And so he's likely going to see way better draft capital. And that's where the difference from a modeling perspective exists. Now, from a ZAP score standpoint, I can tell you confidently that with the updated teammate score and the way that I've kind of like looked at this and taken a step, because teammate score, I'm going to be talking about on the mailbag this week.
Yeah.
It's a really tough metric to nail down and figure, like it's really, there's some subjectivity to it. It's just difficult. But with the teammate score, Jadarian Price is kind of bucketed with Emmett Johnson and Jonah Coleman in the model at this point. So those are kind of like to me, those are like the consideration set for the RB2 in this class behind Jeremiah Love.
It's funny because we just got an email 4 minutes ago from someone, and the title is Notre Dame 2026 running backs versus Ohio State 2025 running backs.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a pretty long email.
A listener that's trying to,
from someone who's a data analyst.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, like Travion Quinshon Judkins got boosted in the model for teammate score. The problem with teammate score, again, I'm going to be talking about this on the mailbag in more detail. The problem with teammate score is that it's very difficult to project future, like underclassmen. For instance, Carnell Tate, right, playing at Ohio State, you're not getting Jeremiah Smith in the teammate score because we don't know where he's going to be. Now, we can sit here and say, oh, we know he's going to be a stud. Yeah, right.
We do kind of know that though.
Yeah, right. But you can make that you can do that more subjectively in the profile write-up and stuff,
right,
as opposed to changing the entirety of a model with hundreds of wide receivers, because at some point you're going to say, okay, am I now evaluating next year's class and saying this guy's good, this guy's not? There's just a lot that would go into that, and a lot of problems that can arise from doing that. And so that is the downside of teammate score. Now, the way the teammate score is factored right now, it gets signal. I know that it's it helps the model. It's not like standalone predictive, but it does help the model. And so if it helps the model, I'm gonna use it. But it's not perfect. It's a far from perfect metric.
Just balling with Jay said, "What's up, guys?" And I just want to say, "What's up, Jamie?" If you're not familiar, go follow Just Ballin' with Jay. No I in there. Just if you're listening on audio, it's Just Ball, the letter N with Jay. He's got some awesome artwork. We met him at the expo last year.
I got the artwork on my laptop right now.
Yeah, I know. I do too. On this laptop, I got the King Henry, and I bought a shirt with the.
What's funny is the 3 guys that I bought, the stickers that I bought were Devon Achane, Chris Olave. This is beginning of the season. This is in August, right? Devon Achane, Travis Hunter, and Chris Olave. I drafted all 3 of them in my home league, and then I won my home league. So I'm buying more stickers this year, is what I'm saying.
I forgot to put the Travis Hunter blurb on the news, but I definitely had thought about it.
Yeah, we'll be able to get. Didn't we talk about it already?
What's that?
Maybe we didn't talk about it. The weird thing,
I don't think we've talked a little bit about how he might be used with that Jacksonville offense, but next week.
Oh, I did on the mailbag. That's what it was, or on the sell candidates.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely.
Well, the weird thing is that this report comes out about him playing corner when we had the exact same report 2 weeks prior, because I used that report in the sell candidates episode.
Yeah.
So it's just weird how like one got traction and the other one didn't. And if you were ahead, you were able to hopefully sell him. Yeah, sell him at a better price. All right.
I do, as someone who listens to your podcast, like the sell and the buy candidates early, as someone, I feel like it's almost like insider trading if I make a move before it comes out.
I mean, I'm not moving markets over here, buddy.
Yeah, for me, you are. So I just, I want everyone else to have the same access to information that I have before moves are made. So, but next week we'll be talking about year 2 receivers.
Yeah, we'll talk about Travis Hunter next week.
Yeah, so we can talk about it then. No worries. All right. With that being said, let's get on to the main event.
The late round main event.
All right, JJ, we have year 2 running back journey comps. And you need to kind of clarify some things before we start on this.
I need to explain this. Okay. these comps are not stylistic comps. They're not, this guy is this weight, this height, this is what he looks like, this is how he plays. These comps are based strictly on a player's ZAP score entering the league, so his prospect score, and then his year 2 score, because I have a year 2 model that looks at how a player performed as a rookie in the NFL. It combines that with the player's prospect score, because you're going to get some funky stuff that happens in year 1, and it projects how well that player is going to do in years 2 through 4. I was doing year 2 and 3 before. I switched that this year to years 2 through 4 to get a little bit more stability within that model. Now, and also it makes sense to do through 4 years because that's their rookie deal typically. And so the one thing I'll say with running back, it's easier to model than wide receiver. And I say that, or it's easier to differentiate from a modeling perspective. When I go and I model, prospects or year 2 guys, I am trying to beat something, in terms of the predictability and the predictiveness of that model. When it comes to the ZAP model stuff, I'm trying to be better than draft capital. So where these guys get drafted by NFL teams, okay, check mark, success, that's done. And I can test it and I can show people that it is more predictive than what draft capital says. When it comes to the year 2 stuff, I am attempting to be more predictive than year 1 PPR points per game. And that looks at how well they perform then in years 2, 3, and 4. And that's the way I measure year 2 through 4 is the same way I measure year 1 to 3 with the ZAP model, which is best 2 seasons average out of those 3 years, right? So it's B2S as I've called it. So I'm measuring against that. Running back is easier because if you look at year 1 PPR points per game and you correlate that to B2S in years 2 through 4, the R squared is actually stronger for a player's ZAP score than it is his year 1 PPR points per game, which is kind of crazy to think about, right?
Getting so nerdy right now.
What I'm saying there is that you could say that there is more predictiveness, or at least it explains that a player's ZAP score explains his year 2 through 4 production better than his year 1 PPR points per game. And it matters more running back. That's not the case at wide receiver. Wide receiver is harder to model. It's harder to prospect. There's a lot more nuance to it. Running back is relatively straightforward. And a lot of the reason for that is because we get these random day 3 running backs who, Dameon Pierce, who just pop up and they have these good, Woody Marks might be that guy, who pop up and they have these productive year 1s, and then they kind of fall off because the team's like, oh, you're actually not someone that we can rely on at the position. And so we're going to draft someone else. And when we draft someone else and we plug them into the backfield, you're not getting any touches anymore. Whereas at wide receiver, you could draft another wide receiver and that wide receiver still gets some work. So the predictiveness just changes, the equation changes. The year 2 model at running back is so much more predictive than year 1 PPR points per game. Like the delta between the model and year 1 PPR points per game at running back is so much greater than it is a wide receiver. So I actually feel better about, how people might be viewing the running backs versus what the year 2 model is saying at running back than I would at wide receivers. That's the caveat. Now, what we're going to do today is look at what I call journey comparables, which again are players who entered the NFL with a certain ZAP score, and then they have a year 2 score of some sort, and they're players that share similar ZAP to year 2 scores in that journey, right? And then there's a similarity score that gets spit out that says this is it's 99 point, this similar to this guy or this similar to this guy. And so what I'm going to do on today's show, in the guide, you're going to get the top 3 journey comps for every relevant running back and wide receiver in the year 2 model. So everyone through the flex play category. But today I looked at all of the comps that pop up whenever, I type in the player's name. And so, I can get tens of them if I want to. And I picked out sort of like the low outcome for a player based on those comps, the median outcome based on those comps that are spit out. This is just a fun exercise. And the high outcome for those players. So let's start with Ashton Jeanty, who, and this is in no particular order. Because
that's what I wanted to really clarify. No particular order. If you want the actual ZAP and year 2 scores, it's in the draft guide or prospect guide rather.
Yeah. And so this is in no particular order because I don't want to give that order away because you can get the scores in the prospect guide. All right. So Ashton Jeanty, we'll start there. Jeanty, people, this is going to be controversial But Genty's, I'm just going to say his ZAP score was 100. Okay. The scaling of the score is a little bit different than it was before. We have multiple players with a score of 100 in the ZAP model now at running back, which is Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Ashton Genty. His year 2 score is 99.6. So it's still very, very good. And people are going to say, how is that possible? He really underperformed in year 1. But again, the year 2 model will weigh that running back prospect score really, really heavily. And then Genty also had a really good weighted opportunity per game, which is just a formula within that year 2 model that I look at targets and, rush attempts, etc. It was top 10 since 2011. So as a result, his low outcome I picked out as Leonard Fournette, which, had his moments in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, he had some.
It's definitely the best low outcome that you're going to find on this list.
Right.
Median outcome is Saquon Barkley. High outcome is Christian McCaffrey, which I don't know which one's better or worse between those two, to be honest with you. But this is all to say that Ashton Genty's comps are like ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't think that the model is not looking at team context and stuff. So I don't think we can just assume that this happens, but I would be shocked out of my freaking mind if Ashton Genty is not an RB1 in one of his next 3 seasons. I'd be shocked. Like I'm talking 18, 20 PPR points per game.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Innovation is what gets your business to the big leagues, and Wasabi is designed to give every business a shot at competition. Break free from skyrocketing storage costs and unpredictable egress fees from old and top-heavy legacy providers. Wasabi is the world's hottest cloud storage company and the go-to provider for professional and collegiate sports teams and leagues around the world, and here's why. Innovation. From Wasabi's AI-enabled intelligent media storage, Wasabi Air, to the industry's only cloud storage service with triple protection against cyber criminals, data deletion, and ransomware, Wasabi has taken the lead in big lead data storage. Remember, Wasabi is up to 80% less than market competition and doesn't charge a cent for businesses to access their own data. Wasabi, another championship story. Check them out for free at wasabi.com. Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage, proud partner of iHeart Podcast Network.
Yeah, no, I remember the Week 16 game when I was battling for a top spot in one of the best ball tournaments, and the other guy had Ashton Genty, and he was just
dump off after dump off.
Yeah, he was like Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley if they had a kid, that's what he was like that game. So this also might be a little interesting. Second guy we're talking about, it's RJ Harvey.
Look, I've voiced my concerns about Harvey, where I think mostly I'm voicing them because I think there's like this Harvey hive who just absolutely love him. Like they're just obsessed with RJ Harvey. I think he's good, but can we just pump the brakes for a second? Like last year, he was 46 out of 48 qualified running backs and rushing yards over expected per rush. He's an explosive running back, but he was not super consistent showing off that explosiveness last year. He had a 5.5% 10 plus yard carry rate among all year 2 running backs in the year 2 model who had 100 or more carries. That was 6th worst of gaining 10 or more yards. But he did have a good receiving profile, 10% target share, which is good for a rookie, all of that. His low, median, and high comps, okay? Amir Abdullah is his low one, which is a little bit scary. Miles Sanders is the median one, which, he had some productive seasons in fantasy. And then I put David Montgomery as the high. Now, if you look at the similarity scores here, Amir Abdullah is actually more similar to RJ Harvey than Miles Sanders and David Montgomery are, but both of them are, relatively strong from a similarity score to RJ Harvey. This just is what was playing into the sell RJ Harvey recommendation that I had just versus the market.
Yeah.
I think Harvey could be a guy that I'm into in redraft. I just don't necessarily see the RB1 ceiling. There's a lot of touchdown regression that's going to hit him this year too.
What about Kyle Yates and his prediction on the Perspectives episode?
Tyler Algier? Yeah, right. Like I think Denver is going to add a running back.
Right.
I mean, there were times this past year where they just didn't seem confident enough in Harvey to really carry that workload. Now he was a rookie, and maybe that's part of it, but he's also an old rookie. He was over 24 when he.
They might add multiple running backs, knowing how Sean Payton works.
Right. I just think that there's a lot of volatility here. I mean, he could run out really well and just have, a good run out and be a viable fantasy asset. But I do think that logically, a lot of the analytical signs are pointing to him being good, not great.
Okay. All right. Harvey Hive. Don't hurt us. Okay. Third on the list, TreVeyon Henderson.
I'll tell you what, the more I've dug into Henderson's profile, the more I'm semi-regretting calling him a sell on the Sell Candidates podcast in an episode, because I do think that I have James Cook ranked ahead of him. Yeah. Right. So
this is the snip, snap kind of thing.
From that perspective, yes, he's a sell. And the wide receivers at that time when I was doing that show, the wide receivers that were ranked ahead of him, or below him rather, there were like 5 or 6 of them that I have ranked ahead. So from that standpoint, I think he's more of a sell than a buy. If you look at his comps, his low comp, we have Jeremy Hill at 98.1, median Javonte Williams at 98, high Josh Jacobs. Again, these are not stylistic comps. They're just how they were as prospects, how they look, entering year 2 and kind of going from there. He had the highest rate of gaining 20 plus yards this past year in this class, which is not surprising. There's only 33 other running backs, though, in the year 2 database who reached a 3% rate of gaining 20 or more yards. That's per rush. Of those, with 4 years in the league, so I'm looking only through, 2022, they averaged a best season in years 2 through 4, 14.5 PPR points per game, which that's the average. Like that's the median outcome of these like big play running backs. Now that's going to skew obviously towards players, players who make big plays are better running backs, are guys who get drafted early, but like that's what TreVeyon Henderson is. Like he was a pretty good prospect, drafted early, explosive, had his moments in fantasy football. The downside here just continues to be Ramondre Stevenson, but I'm gonna back off the take a little bit. Okay. And I hope I was clear on that show that it wasn't like a strong take, but it was a process oriented one that I still believe as like a general transaction, but there are degrees to these transactions. Like one player can be way more of a sell than another, even though one guy gets bucketed the exact same way.
I have a feeling this next guy is going to be, we always get those questions about sleepers and we can't really answer them because we don't know the like league settings, or not sleepers, but keepers rather.
Yeah.
This guy is going to be one of those. It's Cam Skattebo.
Yeah. So Skattebo, obviously I think the year 2 model would have liked him even more had he not gotten hurt. Just because there are some.
It was a bad injury. I mean, it was
a really bad injury.
Yeah.
But weighted opportunity wise, only Genty and Amarian Hampton were better in this year 2 class. The one thing that did translate for Skattebo is that he didn't have many big plays. Fewer than 1% of his rushes went for 20 or more yards. And that was the big question mark with his speed coming out last year. It's just that his bulldozing ability did translate to the league. And, it's like, one of the beautiful parts about Derrick Henry in his game is that he does that, the tackle breaking stuff while also generating big plays because he's so fast.
Yeah.
Skattebo doesn't have that. Now, it's funny that his median comp here is Kareem Hunt, because if you go back and look at last year's prospect guide, Kareem Hunt was one of his top comps in that guide. So I can see that trajectory kind of happening for him. The high comp here is definitely not a stylistic comp, but James Cook and his trajectory in the league as a day 2 guy. Now, Skattebo was a day 3 guy, but you're seeing day 2 running backs listed here. Because again, if you think about what journey comparables are, it's ZAP score, year 2 score, they generally align. The fact that Cam Skattebo is listed among, or the fact that day 2 running backs are listed among Cam Skattebo tells you that Scadaboo's ZAP score was really good for a day 3 pick, for a round 4 guy, because he's being elevated to these other day 2 picks from a ZAP score standpoint. The low end one is Cam Akers. Also kind of interesting because Cam Akers dealt with injury, and that could be a really big reason why Akers never really developed. Yeah. But I do think overall Scadaboo is a fun prospect, guy that you can have on your fantasy roster and just be excited about it. And his year 2 score, like I said, it would be even better had he stayed healthy.
Yeah, we're going to have to pay attention to just the medical stuff this offseason to see where he ends up. If he's someone that is cleared early and is going to play the whole season, or if it's, if he's going to miss a few games.
Yeah. Because
that will definitely affect his draft capital. All right. The next one also dealing with an injury, Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah. So Judkins, I'd say, is not unlike Scadaboo from like a prospect score standpoint. He was a little bit higher than Scadaboo, but then their year 2 score, spoiler alert, they're not that far from one another. And if you look at he has pretty similar comps where it's like Cam Akers as the low end, Miles Sanders as the median, and Le'Veon Bell as the high for Quinshon Judkins. I think like my vibe and outlook for Quinshon Judkins, I think he's good, but I do think that the market has some anchoring bias going on with Judkins. If you look at his top 4 games last year in yards over expected per rush, 3 of those 4 games came during his first 3 games of the season. First 3 of those 4 games came during the first 4 games of the season for Judkins, meaning a lot of his really efficient, effective games came early on. And I think everyone's like, oh, Judkins is awesome. And I think he is. If you look at the data, PFF yards before contact per attempt among high volume backs, his was absolute worst. Genty was second worst. So the offensive line was doing them no favors. I still think, though, that receiving is a question mark for Quinshon Judkins. It was a question mark for him entering the league. I think that a lot of times when it comes to prospecting and analysis of running backs in the NFL for fantasy purposes, for whatever reason, people get enamored with just the running ability of these guys, and we ignore the receiving ability. Now, an argument can be made that running is becoming a little bit more important than it did 3 or 4 years ago and than it was 3 or 4 years ago. But even still, the receiving side, especially in a PPR format, matters a lot. And I don't know if Judkins is, like he has Le'Veon Bell as a comp here. Le'Veon Bell is going to like he's not going to see Le'Veon Bell type receiving volume in the NFL. And so, he had a 30% route share last year, which is a red flag, So I like Judkins, but I do think that if there's someone who's like in love with Judkins, I'm talking like, 5 spot running back spots ahead of market, whatever.
Cleveland fan.
You could look to trade him away.
Cleveland fan. Speaking of trades, K Crash said, I sold the farm, Odunze Pitts in late second for Hampton last year because the prospect guy. And he said, okay, it wasn't that great of a farm. But speaking of Hampton, we have him next on the list.
Amarian Hampton. Yeah, the ZAP model loves Amarian Hampton. That is for sure. So Hampton, his low comp is Trent Richardson. So could go south. Median is Leonard Fournette. So it's like kind of one step off of Ashton Genty. And then the high end one is Ezekiel Elliott.
Didn't he have a Zeke comp?
He had a Zeke comp as a prospect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously we didn't see a ton of Amarian Hampton last year because of the injury, but he was 15th in rushing yards over expected per attempt in the NFL. He had a 12% target share, and that's in a tougher offense, a Greg Roman offense, where it's not as easy to get that high of a number. So I have this blurb from his profile right up in the prospect guide. I'll just read it. And look, whenever I say and do these like this threshold analysis, it's more of a nugget than like a sure thing. And it's just a fun and interesting thing to analyze and look at. But from 2011 through 2022, there have been 10 running backs in the year 2 model database who entered the league as a legendary performer or elite producer. So Amarian Hampton was an elite producer and then earned at least a 12% target share as a rookie. 6 of those players had an RB1 season within their next 3 seasons. So we're looking at a situation where there's like, based on that, it's a 60% chance that we get like a true RB1 season from Amarian Hampton over the next 3 years. I just think he's a good player and the data really likes him. Admittedly, the ZAP model like really, really loved him. I don't think it was the wrong call though. Like he was good when he was active, and he was a very able player. That injury just kind of derailed things. I am very excited about Mike McDaniel, a better offensive line. I mean, things could really come together for Amari and Hampton in year 2.
For sure. Yeah. And people were feeling really good about him at the, at the start of the season. And now, do we have to worry about Kamani Vidal? No,
I think that he's going to play a role. I mean, most backfields are split in some way. And so I think Vidal will be a piece there in that backfield, but Amari Hampton's a bell cow. Like he's like, again, he's one of those players where you give him the hole, he's going to be able to break off huge plays and generate those splash plays that we love in fantasy. I don't think that he's the best creator in the world, but he has that size speed combination and the ability to be a decent receiver. You know, he's part of that giant bucket that I always talk about, where guys are at least capable of seeing those double-digit percentage target shares. He did that last year, right? And all of that combined, you're like, is he the most talented elite running back? No. Situationally, though, he can get there from a fantasy perspective.
I don't know if K Crash feels better. Hopefully he does. Because it wasn't that big of a farm, and Hampton could just go off. So speaking of comments, JJ, we've got an interesting one. Did you see Third Down Dill, our buddy?
No, should we go on to the final section of the show?
Yeah, we should. There you go. Final section of the show. I don't know if you saw our buddy Third Down Dill. Remember the guy that stopped us on the street at the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I do. Of course. He's a Charlotte guy.
That was his buddy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he said, I can't believe I told my buddy Taylor from Barstool to look for you in San Francisco. And a few days later, he sends a pic with you. We literally saw him on the street.
So this is what happened, though. We were about 2 blocks away from Radio Row.
Yeah.
And we were walking from our hotel. It was in the morning. And someone just walks up behind us and he goes, hey, are you JJ Zacharyson? And I turn around, I'm like, yeah, I'm JJ Zacharyson. Yeah. And then we start talking, and he lives in outside of Charlotte, like pretty close to me. Listens to the show and stuff, and he said that his friend had said that that I was going to be out there.
Yeah.
And then you were like, do you want to get a picture?
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, I want to get a picture. So we just got a picture, and then he must have sent it to the league or whatever, the group of friends, and that's hilarious.
Because I think I may have told the story on this show, but a number of years ago, this was 2020, right before things went south, COVID, but we went to Disney World, and I'm talking in 5 minutes in, someone comes up and goes, are you Soccer David Kitchen?
It's so funny.
And I was like, yes, absolutely I am. And my wife and kids were like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
And I was so proud of that moment. And he said, can we get a picture? And so I said, yes. I then went to Twitter at the time and bragged about it. The guy never tagged me with the picture.
Oh, man.
It never saw the light of day. So naturally, my Swolecast co-hosts think that it was a big, made up,
farce.
So.
There was one situation. So like, I'll get recognized at times, whatever. It's not very frequent, and I like it. It's great. If you guys recognize me though in public, like come say hi, because I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But
same.
I've had like spurts randomly where it's like I've seen, there's like 3 people in a 2-week span or something, which is always funny and cool. But there was one where I ran a marathon relay with Mike Leone, friend of the show, and his sister and brother-in-law and someone else, one of their friends. We did a marathon relay in downtown Charlotte. This was years ago. And afterwards we went and got brunch downtown Charlotte, and we walk in and mind you, Leone lives in Buffalo, so I don't get to see Leone very often. Okay. But his sister lives down here in Charlotte. And so I'll get to see him every so often. And so I'm not like out with Leone very frequently. Yeah. Well, we're out at this brunch place, and someone's like, are you JJ Zacharyson? And so from Leone, I was like, yeah, that's, whatever. Like, I talked to him a little bit, and I thought to myself afterwards, like from Leone's perspective, he probably thinks that everywhere I go. So it's just like,
did he ask
are you the late round quarterback?
Did he ask if he was two hats, one Mike, Michael Leone?
He did not. No. I don't know if you realize though that Leone was, I stand out more than Leone does because I'm bigger than Leone and I've got a
for sure.
giant head. That's tough to miss.
Yeah. Are you the spreadsheet socialist, Michael Leone?
We did get a question in chat. How does Love grade compared to Genty? Genty was better than Love as a prospect. I really like Jeremiah Love. I don't think he's going to make it into the legendary producer category, which only like a handful of running backs have since 2011, but he's going to be on the high end of the elite producer category. He's a very, very good prospect.
Okay. Shout out to everyone that interacted with the show. Again, we get down and nerdy on the show. It's an interactive show. So if you join us live, we welcome your comments. And then after the show, we welcome your comments, feedback, whatever you have for us. Also, if you're not joining the Discord and the late round Patreon, do that. We've got Dynasty season coming up. Talking ball in the Patreon, so and in Discord, so that will be good. And JJ, we have a few things for them to listen to. The running backs episode.
Yep, got a running back episode that was out on Tuesday, and then on Friday we will have the mailbag episode this week, and then a newsletter that went out about Bashal Tutin, another player who I said to buy, who I'm now, after doing more research, kind of pumping the brakes a little bit there. Similar to Travion Henderson.
That's what happens when you like do research in real time. You don't have like you don't have like a month.
Yeah. I also think that like my job is to be transparent, of course, right, but also like I'm going on this journey with other people to discover things, to, talk about them. I'm not going to like hide things, but at the same time, I don't want to just say something and it be concrete for the rest of my life. The same thing happened with like Chase Brown a few years ago, where I had Chase Brown as a sell at first. And then after about a month of research, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have this as a, him as a sell. And I ended up buying Chase Brown, after doing that. So like, I think that it's important for me to be honest and transparent with people. And if that's not your vibe, that's not your vibe. That's fine. But I think that most people should want to have an analyst or a person giving them advice who changes their opinion with new information. That new information is often just research. And that's what I'm doing with these, prospects and year two guys. It doesn't happen super frequently, but it's going to happen. And I'm going to change my opinion, and I'll let you guys know when I am changing my opinion.
There you go. Again, lateround.com to purchase the prospect guide, sign up for the free newsletter, more free content than we've done before. And JJ, remember the viewer that said year one and year two running backs were their kink?
Yes.
My kink has been satiated. Is that how you say it?
Satiated.
Satiated.
Yeah. Thank you,
Kings. So, no. Thank you. And thank you, JJ. Thank you all for tuning in. And we will see you next time here on the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. Peace.
You know how it's never really about where you're going? It's about who you're going with. The right people can turn any drive into a great memory. That's something Toyota really believes. They design vehicles around real life and real people, the ones who make plans happen and bring everyone together. Inside, everything's built with passengers in mind. Comfortable seating, smart layouts, and space that actually works so everyone can relax and enjoy the ride. There's room for the people, room for the stuff, and room for the moments that happen along the way. Because when people are the destination, your ride is important. Learn more at Toyota.com and find the vehicle that fits your people.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.